So in this video we'll be looking at the bar beat marker generation capabilities of Beat Detective. But before we do this, we're going to need to look at the difference between tick-based and sample-based tracks. So I'll create one of each. Command-Shift-N for my new tracks dialog, one in samples and the other one in ticks. Let's name them. Command right arrow is my next command. And you can see on a track whether it's sample or tick based from the symbols here. So sample based could be changed to ticked and vice versa. Now a sample based track means that the clip positions are identified according to the number of samples from the beginning of the session. You could think of this as an absolute time value. Tick-based tracks, well, their clip events are based on bar and beat based measurements. Now the big difference between them is that tick-based tracks will be affected by tempo changes. So to demonstrate that, let me bring in a snare hit and I'll put this on beat 1 of bar 2 on both tracks. I'll also add my transport window so I can see and change my my tempo value. Moving my timeline to the beginning of both of these clips, you can see that my main timeline, currently bars and beats, tells me that this is at beat 2 of, it's bar 2 beat 1, and this is at 2 seconds into the song. Now if I change my tempo to 60 BPM, you can see my timeline is still here at bar 2 beat 1, but this is now 4 seconds into the song. This one is where it always has been, at 2 seconds into this track. So you understand how if you have a tick-based track, this will follow all of your tempo changes. So if I put these spaced apart like so, changing my BPM will have an effect. Let's listen without. And at 120 BPM. And my tick-based track has always been at exactly 2 seconds into the track. We can decide whether the timeline up the top here is actually sample or tick-based, and that's what this does here. So currently, if I make any tempo changes, you don't actually see the minutes and seconds value change, but you will see that these bars and beats, well, if I go now to 60 BPM, they will spread further apart. My 2 has now gone over here. Whereas if I went for a linear tick display, then changing the tempo, hasn't affected the bar and beat, but has changed the times instead. I'll put that back to linear sample display, and I'll show you that again in a minute when we go back to Beat Detective. Let's open up our Beat Detective session. Had it open recently. Here we go. And I've brought this back to the state we had it in earlier, where I've just got a bar accurate tempo map. Let's give it a listen just for a reminder. Check the click track is on. Good. Now it's extremely unlikely that the drummer actually completely changed his tempo at each of these events. There would have been some gradual change, possibly up and down, knowing this drummer, in between each one. And we saw earlier we could do a manual tempo map and go through and identify each of these sync points. But we can get Beat Detective to do a lot of the work for us. So let's open up Beat Detective. Oops. Select the kick track and capture my selection. Analyze it. Bring up the bar until I see the kick hits. That looks about right. I've got an additional snare hit here, so Option click to get rid of that from the events. I'll add some snares to this, so semicolon to move my selection down. One moment, almost forgot. Collection mode, add my kicks to here, then move that down. Analyze my snares. That should do. And add those to the collection as well. Now this is last time where we clicked on clip separation. This time I'm going to stay in bar beat marker generation and hit generate. Here it comes back to what we just looked at. We can decide to preserve the tick positions. So this will mean that if it's at bar 3, beat 3, it'll stay there, or you can make everything stay exactly where it is, which is what we're going to do. And here is my new tempo map. Let's give this a listen. Now you can't actually hear most of that effect because our click track isn't playing enough of the beats. If I close my Beat Detective down and go back to my mix window and show myself the click track, I'm going to change the click to TL Metro. Going back to the edit window, I can actually add in additional beats, so now you should hear more of the effect. So here you just can see that this has allowed me to get a much more accurate tempo map and save me quite a lot of time. Doing large sections at once is not recommended. It does make mistakes. The most I would ever do at a time with almost any of the Beat Detective modes is about 8 bars. So in the next video we'll look at the groove extraction capabilities of Beat Detective.